You've just entered the Extra Zone Arcade. We're heading back up into the final frontier for this episode of the Mario 40th Anniversary Superspective. Last time, we covered another kind of sequel in New Super Mario Bros. Wii, where I concluded that it was a pretty great game, but lacked originality. Now, we're talking about the one time a 3D Mario game got a direct sequel, and on the same console no less. So, why and how exactly did Super Mario Galaxy 2 release? Well, development began pretty much as soon as the first game shipped, and would essentially be an expansion of the first game. Obviously, the Wii wasn't capable of DLC, so it'd be its own separate release titled Super Mario Galaxy 1.5. Real creative. The aim was to have the game done around a year later, so it would have been a holiday title for 2008. Of course, in typical Nintendo EAD fashion, they had much bigger plans for this one in the end. Namely, bringing back scrapped concepts from the original game such as Yoshi, and a planetoid shaped like Mario's mug. So, at this point, it was starting to look a whole lot more like a new game than just a level pack, and the game was pushed back to allow for more dev time. Yoshiaki Koizumi and Takashi Tezuka are back to producing, with Koichi Hayashida in the director's chair. Once again, we got the best hands on this project. Originally, they played with the idea of cameos from other Nintendo series like Pikmin and Donkey Kong, but the idea was shot down by Miyamoto himself. It basically just came down to it not really making sense in this type of game, which I guess is fair. Still, it could have been cool to see galaxies based on those games. The game was shown off at E3 2009, along with New Super Mario Bros. Wii. Wild times. A new 2D and 3D Mario being revealed at the same event? Wonder if the stars will ever align like that again, especially with how game development has shifted in over 15 years. Hype was building for Super Mario Galaxy 2, as they were now calling it, and the game would release in the following year on May 23rd in the US, May 27th in Japan, June 11th in Europe, and July 1st in Australia. Wow, this video is just 2 days out from its 15th anniversary in Europe. Talk about insane timing. Just like the first game, Galaxy 2 was met with an extremely warm reception from fans, critics, and casual players. But does this game really stack up to the first? That's already a very high bar to cross, but maybe this game is actually even better. My experience with this game is basically intertwined with the first, so if you want a bit more of a detailed background, go check that video out and come back here. And if for whatever reason this is your first one, hi, welcome, hope you enjoy your stay. And don't worry about the roaches, they're pretty chill once you get to know them. Go watch all the other parts leading up to this. You'll get much better context for everything going forward. Cool? Alright. To sum it up, I got this game for my birthday back in 2014, along with a brand spanking new Wii U. I dipped into this game every so often between then and 2020, but I never actually beat the game. Though of the two Galaxy games, I seem to remember spending more time with this one for a few reasons. The main one being the big selling point of this game, the grand return of Yoshi in 3D. The Green Dino has always been one of my favourite characters in the series. He's the definition of the word friend, and is pretty much just a chill guy. If you don't like Yoshi, I don't trust you. Clearly I'm not alone in that though. I mean, he was popular enough to essentially have his own series. Let me know if you guys want a series on that, by the way. I've actually not touched a good number of them. So yeah, that and the more varied levels of this game were enough to keep me coming back more. Then, I played through the game again in 2020, right after I finished up the first. I remember thinking it wasn't as good as Galaxy 1 by the time it wrapped up, but still had a good time. At that time, I was still kinda learning how to think more critically about games. You know, thinking about why I do or don't like elements of them. This game has a much more prominent difficulty curve than the first one, and generally is more challenging from start to finish. I wasn't so sure I liked that at the time. I'll get more into my take on that kind of stuff later in the video. My next playthrough is for the Mariothon playthrough series back in 2023. I remember these Galaxy 2 streams pretty fondly because this is where I actually started to gain an audience, some of which are still watching to this day. Shout out to you if you've been here since then, damn near 2 years strong. You're crazy. Here's what I had to say by game's end.
Super Mario Galaxy 2. What a journey it's been going through both of these games, and just like what a journey it's been just in general up to this point. But yeah, Mario Galaxy 2. So I always liked it, but to me it was never like on the level of Galaxy 1. But playing them both like back to back like this has given me a little bit of a new perspective. And now, honestly, I kind of feel like they're on par. I think I still prefer the first game, but Mario Galaxy 2 is no slouch. But yeah, just what an absolutely fun game. Like they really pulled off such an incredible two games here, genuinely. Like they're both really freaking good. These are where 3D Mario really started to like become just absolutely great. Like I really like, but I barely have any complaints for either game, to be honest. Genuinely really fun. I love Yoshi in this game. He's fun as hell. I just wish he got a little more use, and that the power-ups for him are a little bit less situational. So that's it for Super Mario Galaxy 2, yeah. What a game. What a game.
It went from me definitively preferring the first game to it being a lot closer between them. Can I finally figure out for good which one is the better game? Hopefully playing through both 100% will bring me to that answer. Before I get into the gameplay, there's something I gotta bring back. Yeah, remember this? God, I haven't seen this since the Mario Land 2 episode. I was considering bringing up what makes a good sequel in the New Super Wii episode, but I really don't see it as a direct sequel to DS. Despite their surface level similarities, the games are going for different things, which I think are built on with New Super Mario Bros. 2 and U respectively. Anyway, back on topic. These are the elements of a good sequel. 1. Expand on the gameplay and mechanics from the previous title, refine the original mission statement, and add more layers to set things apart. 2. Introduce something that could become a key feature or staple in the series moving forward. For instance, a character, enemy, or game mechanic that becomes iconic in its own right. And 3. Clean up or remove features that didn't work well or weren't well received. This one's tricky because you never want to throw out an idea, especially one that made the cut in the first place. Sometimes though, you gotta do it to make room for better and more refined features. With that all now fresh in our minds, let's jump into this thing with the only major downgrade from the OG, the story. It's heavily implied to be an alternate version of the first game, a retelling of sorts, so this is another story that begins with Stardust. Stop me if this sounds familiar. Once every 100 years, a comet passes over Mario's world, scattering a glorious array of shooting stars. This year, a festival is being held in the Mushroom Kingdom for the occasion, and Mario gets a special invite from the princess herself to join in on the celebration. Never one to turn down an opportunity to eat out Peach's cake, Mario rushes over in excitement. Along the way, he runs into a young lost Luma who quickly takes a liking to the plumber. Literally living rent-free in Mario's head, the Luma grants him the spin ability, and they get to the kingdom's gates. They find the peaceful and joyful atmosphere has been ruined by an attack from none other than Bowser. This time, he's got some pretty big ambitions. And I mean big. Remember in the last episode when I said New Super Mario Bros. Wii was the biggest we'd ever seen him? Well, this Bowser dwarfs even that. He's already got the princess in the palm of his hand, go figure, and plans to remake the universe more to his size. With that, our plucky hero set out into the vastness of the unknown, arriving on a small planet with a skeleton crew on it. This is actually a stranded ship, and its captain Lubba figures if they put their heads together, they can find the rest of his missing crew and save the princess. This guy's a real one, surprisingly down-to-earth guy considering the fact that he spent most of his life traveling through space. If I can be real, I liked him a lot more as a guiding hand for Mario than Rosalina in the first game. He just has so much more charm and personality. Sure, he doesn't have a super involved backstory like she does, or really even any backstory at all. Add him to the list of forgotten characters that I want to show up in some way again. Anyway, they beat back Bowser's battalion from galaxy to galaxy until they reach his generator. He's using a large comet to power it up, but Mario and the gang are able to put an end to his plans before they can come to fruition. Oh, and Peach is safe again. Yay. Turns out that trapped comet was actually the Comet Observatory. Yep, Rosalina makes an appearance here and reunites with the lost Luma that accompanied Mario all this time. Rosalina suggests their being drawn together and all meeting up in this spot was not mere coincidence. That those with special bonds will always be drawn together and reunite after hardship. A pretty beautiful message to end the game on. Much shorter plot summary compared to the first one, huh? In all fairness, Galaxy 1's story wasn't anything crazy either, it really just came down to all the backstory. Miyamoto made a conscious decision to cut down on that aspect this time in order to focus more on the pure gameplay experience. That choice kinda ends up being a double-edged sword when it comes to discussions around which is the better game. Some like the more in-depth lore of the first game, while others like the expanded concepts of this one. I'll get more into that later. Gameplay-wise, it's the exact same as the first. Same controls, same physics, same moves, so pretty much all the praise I had for the game feel of the first one can be applied here. But some of the other mechanics are quite a bit different this time. Take Luigi for instance. Remember how he used to be the second campaign? Well, after a certain point in this game, he'll sometimes show up in galaxies where you can switch to him for that particular mission. He still has his signature differences from Mario, you know, the slippery feet and higher jump, just like the first game. Once you beat Bowser, he's available to play wherever you like by going through this door on Starship Mario. I think I like how he's implemented here a little better. Sure, it was cool that he got to play through the entire campaign in Galaxy 1, but I think it streamlines things a little to have him as a selectable character. Of course, this is a Galaxy game, so we have the same gravity gimmick here that worked so well in the first game, though they definitely did more interesting things with it this time around. More often than not, I found the outer space setting didn't factor into how I would usually approach platforming. Here though, I feel like it's been baked into the challenge more carefully. Right Side Down Galaxy is a great example of this, since it revolves around these gravity fields you need to navigate. Flipsville Galaxy similarly puts changing gravity in the forefront, but in this case, you're almost always going to be pulled to the floor, regardless of your position. These are some of the more creative uses for it, but on the whole I feel it's implemented much more creatively this time. As well as the creativity, one thing this game is up to is the difficulty. Galaxy 1, as great as it is a very easy game. There are several missions that got a little tricky, but it's honestly one of the easier games we've talked about so far. Galaxy 2 turns up the dial quite a bit. In fact, I was pretty caught off guard by this during my 2020 playthrough, coming right off the back of the first one. There were a good number of missions that had me stumped for one reason or another. This time, I didn't struggle nearly as much as some of my previous playthroughs. Experience will do that. Still, I got tilted a good few times here, namely with Fleet Glide Galaxy and Boss Blitz Galaxy. Fleet Glide has you grab onto the talons of Fluzzard, where you'll need to use the Wii's motion controls to maneuver through obstacles. Yeah, so these are back from the first game. Hell, they even brought back the Rolling Ball Galaxies from the first one. Fluzzard gliding basically replaces the ray surfing in this one, and I honestly don't know which I like less. It does only show up for 2 missions, but I just really don't mess with motion controls at all. Fleet Glide is particularly difficult because there are a ton more obstacles, and if you run into anything too hard, you're dead. Straight up. Worse yet is the fastest feathers in the galaxy mission, where you need to race Jibberjay to the end of the course. So now you gotta play this course perfectly and fast. Boss Blitz Galaxy evidently is a boss rush level, and they're all returning bosses from Galaxy 1. Dino Piranha, King Caliente, Major Burrows, Bouldergeist, and no! They did not bring this bastard back! Yeah, this fucking guy is almost single-handedly the reason I don't like this galaxy, on top of not being the biggest fan of boss rushes in general. He is just as annoying to fight as in the first game. But oh, you thought that's all there is to it, right? Well, I raise you the speedrun comet for this stage. Throwback Throwdown Speedrun is the single worst, most bullshit mission between these two games. You have 5 minutes to beat all these guys, which doesn't seem that bad at first. At least until you realize there are no clocks to increase your time, no Lumily to increase your health, and no checkpoints. That's not even the worst part though. The last 2 guys you fight are specifically designed to waste your time in this mission. Bouldergeist is basically RNG. You better hope your bomb boo volleys are pixel perfect so they don't hit one of the rocks he sprouts up or his arms in the second phase. Or the secret third option of it colliding with another bomb boo while he's running away. Awful. This fight alone will take up half your time. Then there's Fiery Dino Piranha. At the time of writing this, I'm up to Super Mario Odyssey, and I have still yet to encounter a harder boss fight in the series than this. I went into more details on why that is during the Galaxy 1 episode, but basically add an incredibly strict timer on top of all of that. Needless to say, I took a half hour to beat this mission, and man, it was one of the most frustrating things I've had to do in this series. Okay, so you get the picture now. This game at times will push you much further than Galaxy 1. Which in some respects is a good thing, but I feel too often said difficulty will just kinda come out of nowhere, and then go back to being more comfortable right after. The difficulty scaling itself is good, and feels much more noticeable than the first, but sometimes it'll spike much higher than that and it feels pretty jarring. Now, let's counterbalance that by talking about some of the best missions in the game. Cloudy Court Galaxy is a great one with a focus on one of this game's new power-ups, the Cloud Mushroom. Your spin move now spawns a cloud underneath, creating a new platform to stand on. You can do it up to 3 times before you need to grab another one and refuel. This has to be one of the most ingenious power-ups in the series, and it all comes from a concept as simple as a power-up in a platformer that makes platforms. That's that classic Nintendo touch right there. This level shows off some of the best this ability has to offer. It's all about how you position your clouds and the timing with which you create them, as fans will blow them in different directions. It makes for a really kinetic level where you have to think on your feet, and keep a hold of as many clouds as possible to make big skips. The best way to go about this stage is to long jump before you make that cloud to cover the most distance. Supermassive Galaxy is another attempt at a giant-sized world in the series, and I almost always love these whenever we get them. Almost. Looking at you, Tiny Huge Island. Both the regular and speedrun variants of this stage are incredibly fun to traverse, with one of my favourite parts being the 2 giant thwomps. Wall jumping between them just feels so badass. And I can't forget about Throwback Galaxy bringing back one of the better levels from Mario 64, Whomp's Fortress, complete with a fight against the Whomp King himself. It was just really cool to see this back, and really served as a reminder of how far the series has come since then. In general, I feel like they actually went more in the direction of Mario 64 for the stage selection. There isn't as much theming to them from world to world, but I think this served to give the developers more creativity. So what you end up with is levels that are a lot more varied in both theming and actual design, since they weren't tying themselves down as much aesthetically. There's plenty to do within these stages, even if they do continue the more linear stage design from the first. Some of these things involve the 2 new power-ups in this game, like the Cloud Flower that I already mentioned. The Rock Mushroom is the other one, and this allows Mario to curl into a heavy ball of destruction. rolling over any enemy or obstacle in your path. There's a mission in Melty Monster Galaxy, a stroll down rolling lane where you have to carefully guide Rock Mario through this fast-paced course. Definitely one of the most exhilarating in the game, and tough in a way that makes you want to keep at it even if you fumble. The other power-ups from the first game are back here and work the same. The Fire Flower is still a time power-up, the Bee Mushroom is still cool but not as much as the Cloud Flower, the Rainbow Star still makes you invincible, Spring Mushroom is chaotic as ever, and the Boo Mushroom is, there I guess. There are some other new power-ups added to this game, but they can only be used by our boy. The people's favourite is back, and I gotta say right off the bat, he is so much better than Sunshine. Yoshi is a lot faster and snappier on the ground than Mario, which is already great, because the one thing I was never too fond of was the slower feel of the Galaxy games. I don't think it's bad, and like I've said before, it was done to make the gravity mechanics less daunting, but I like the rush you get with Yoshi. He can flutter jump and eat enemies, like we've all become accustomed to. For some reason, it's really satisfying aiming the cursor onto a target and either having Yoshi gobble the thing or swing off it. There's just something about the feedback you get from that really scratches an itch in my brain. The dino appears in only 11 out of the 49 galaxies though, and I really wish it were more. Look, I get that designing every level or even most levels around him would be really difficult and time consuming, but I mean come on, he's on the box art front and center. Heck, he's more of a focal point than Mario is, and he appears in less than 1/4 of the game? Justice for my man, he keeps getting snubbed like this. Whenever Yoshi is in play though, you can bet it's going to be a great time. Now it's time to talk about some of those power-ups he can use that make it an even better time. First is the Dash Pepper. Eat this spicy snack and Yoshi will blast off at high speeds, becoming a little unwieldy in the process. It has a very arcadey feel to it, which for some reason I can't explain brings me great joy. Hightail Falls is the galaxy where this one really gets to shine. The Blimp Fruit turns Yoshi into a giant balloon that rises up as a strong air current comes from his mouth. You can maneuver him, and hold A to have him hold his breath, which will stop you in place for a bit. Tall Chunk Galaxy's Floatacious Blimp Fruit mission is where you'll get to use this power up in all its glory, floating up this horizontal log planet while avoiding prickly plants and other obstacles. Lastly is the Bulb Berry, which lets Yoshi light the place up. Holy shit, not like that! Relax, Yoshi! This only lasts a limited time before you're left in the dark again, so make sure you're quick to chow down on another one. Sweet Mystery Galaxy is a stage that revolves entirely around this enlightened power. Yoshi doesn't only help with platforming though, he actually helps you fight a couple bosses, namely King Lakitu and Mega Hammer. Both of these guys shoot and or throw projectiles at you that Trusty Green can eat up and spit back out. But what about the ones you have to fight without the help of Yoshi? Like the first game, there is a crap ton of bosses to fight, so I'll just cover some of the ones that stood out the most. Remember Mega Leg from the first game and how I said Mario should fight more huge ass mechs? Well, Digger Leg pretty much fulfills that role here, as you have to use one of the spin drills to dig from one end of this small planetoid to another. You gotta make sure your timing is good so he doesn't flip to his indestructible side, and your positioning is right so you don't crash into his feet. As you get more into the fight, these diggers will try to jump you. How did they get away with naming them that? Gobblegut is probably one of the most iconic bosses from the Galaxy games. I mean, how often does Mario get to fight a dragon? As his name suggests, this guy is hungry for some Italian food and will try and eat Mario up in one gulp. When he crashes down into the ground, hit each of his very obvious red weak points to dish out the damage. Pop all of his zits and he's done for. Then he gets turned into a road for us to drive on in Mario Kart 8's Dragon Driftway. Probably the most morbid fate of any Mario character. He actually reappears with a fiery form like him, but this one isn't much harder to beat than normal. The only real difference just came down to being more careful not to touch him when it's my turn to attack. The Koopa Clan is just as ferocious as ever, with Bowser himself being a major player once again. You fight him 3 times throughout the game, and he'll try to flatten Mario with all his might, fry him to death, and rain down meteors. Intense. Once he punches the ground again, the meteors turn into orbs you can ground pound to launch at him. It's the only way to crack that shell of his, and in the final fight, you gotta do that while being sucked into a black hole. It's an appropriately climactic fight with one of the best final battle themes in all of gaming. On the other hand, Bowser Jr.'s Boomsday machine was actually a really tough fight that has used the Cloud Flower to reach the glass dome on top and deal damage. The thing is, you gotta avoid fire bars and these electrical orbs that home in on you. Doesn't sound too bad, does it? And you'd be right. At least until it starts moving around, making it much harder to actually get up and hit the weak point. Not to mention the fans that'll suck you in, which can turn the advantage of your cloud suit into a slight liability. This fight maybe more than any other will keep you on your toes. That goes triple for the Daredevil run, which just like Galaxy 1, are Prankster Comet missions that only allow you 1 hit point to defeat a boss. Speedy Comets also return, and are actually more intense this time around. The time limits aren't quite as forgiving as the first, and in some missions you may need to pick up extra clocks or you'll run out of time for sure. Purple Comets once again task you with collecting 100 purple coins. But this time, none of these really stood out as being particularly difficult. Only Tool Trunk Galaxy's slide comes to mind here, since you can miss coins permanently on the way down. They still give you more than you need though, so it really isn't bad at all. Fast Foes return, this time called Double Time Comets, which speed up all enemies and obstacles in their respective missions, of which there are 2. Some things just never change. Then there are a couple of new types of comet. First is the Romp Comet, which are missions that will have you stomp out a certain number of enemies before the time is up. These were okay, not particularly challenging or anything noteworthy otherwise. Lastly is the Green Star Comets, which are the only ones in the game that aren't just given the blanket name of Prankster Comet. I got some of the names from the Mario Wiki, shoutouts to them again. They've really come in clutch for this series. Anyway, in order to even see these things, you have to have collected the newly added Comet Medals, which are what unlocks comets in a given galaxy. I like this new system. It makes it feel less random which ones will appear, and you can play them anytime as soon as they become available, even one after the other. The medals themselves were never too hard to find, but it adds an extra layer of depth to the levels that's appreciated, much like the star coins in the new Soup games. So yeah, the medals unlock the comet missions, which show up in every galaxy and count towards the 120 star total. If you beat Bowser again with all of them in hand, you then unlock the green stars, which are essentially the second campaign of this game. There are also 120 of those, with there being 3 in each of the main galaxies and 2 in the smaller ones. They were alright. See, the way they're usually obtained isn't too different from something like a comet medal or star coin, but they end the level the same way grabbing a regular star would. I think it would have been much better to have it so that you just collect all 3 in one run, instead of it kicking you out of the level. Then again, some of them do appear in missions where the level design might have changed a lot, so I understand why they didn't do it in those cases. I ended up getting all of these pretty fast, and there wasn't a single one of these that I struggled on. At this point, I truly felt like I mastered the Super Mario Galaxy series. That was, until I unlocked the Grandmaster Galaxy. Is what I would be saying if I didn't beat it in like 3 attempts. The perfect run though? Now let me tell you, whoa, hold your horses there, bucko. We gotta get 9,999 starbits before we can play around with that. Yeah, so in order to unlock this game's ultimate final challenge, you need to do a bunch of mindless grinding. Fortunately, I'm playing Super Mario Galaxy 2, which is a fun game that I don't mind replaying a bunch of content in. Still, this feels like a very unnecessary roadblock that does nothing but pad the game out, and it shows. I use Sweet Mystery Galaxy and Melty Monster's Rolling Lane mission to grind starbits, since you can grab them, die a bunch, and beat the level quickly to rack them up. As I was saying, let me tell you about what is widely considered to be the hardest, most unforgiving challenge in all of Mario. This one challenge beats anything Sunshine or Lost Levels throws at you. A challenge so dastardly and elusive that not even some of the most seasoned Mario fans have completed it, and I beat this one in less than 5 attempts. Yeah, Grandmaster Galaxy's perfect run is a very tough mission, and I'd be lying if I said those attempts were a cakewalk. I just happened to be locked in on a different level that morning, so I beat it in less than 15 minutes. And in all fairness, I did it with Luigi, who makes things a little easier for me personally with his higher jump. So that was it. After 242 stars, I finally 100% completed Super Mario Galaxy 2. I think it's safe to say after doing it all, in spite of some of the things about this game I wasn't so keen on, this game has surpassed Mario Galaxy 1 for me. Yeah, in probably the biggest upset we've seen in this retrospective, I've now become a Galaxy 2 truther. It all comes down to a few simple things. I've repeatedly used the phrase creative or creativity throughout this thing, and it's because this game is just bursting at the seams with it. Not to say the first game wasn't, I mean the concept alone was something really inspired. But to be frank, Galaxy 1 ran so that 2 could sprint. 1 might have the story and maybe even atmosphere, but in the thing that matters most, gameplay and design, I think 2's got it beat. They're both immaculately designed platformers, but Galaxy 2 does exactly what any good sequel does, and expands on the first game's concepts to a satisfying degree. In fact, it hits all 3 of my good sequel points rather nicely. Well, maybe except for keeping some of the motion control gimmicks like the rolling ball stages in there. But whatever, like I said in the Galaxy 1 video, they're relatively harmless. And it's not like there's a bunch. So just like that game, I think this is absolutely essential playing. A game that you absolutely shouldn't pass up. A truly otherworldly experience with a top tier soundtrack to boot. Personally, I think it kicks the shit out of the first game's OST, and I love that one too. And hey, Yoshi's in it, so I think that's more than enough reason to give it the time of day. The game sold over 6.36 million copies, about half of what the first game did. Still, that's pretty damn good considering the Wii was pretty much dead by 2010 with the advent of good smartphones and tablets. But the rise of the iPad kids didn't stop this game from having its fans, as it would receive scores comparable to the first game. But hey, it's a 3D Mario. I'd be incredibly concerned if they didn't have a rating above 90 on Metacritic. More than anything, This was the end of an era. The series would move into a different direction for the next several games. I kinda alluded to this in the New Super Mario Bros. Wii episode, but that kind of style and aesthetic would be adopted into all corners of the franchise for a while. 3D Mario is about to become quite a lot different, and yet very familiar at the same time.
Turn your home into the most exciting place in the universe with Super Mario Galaxy 2. Rated E for everyone.
And thus, the final page of this Stardust story comes to a close. What do you guys think of Super Mario Galaxy 2? Heck, what do you think of the Galaxy duology as a whole? I'd love to hear your opinions down in that nice comment box. While on your way there, make sure to hit subscribe and tap that bell so you never miss an episode of this series. We're entering pretty much the last decade of the series next time, so hold on to your hats because we're going 3D. But like, stereoscopic. See you there.